Welcome to Mr. Marr's Lockdown History. Quick 2-minute summaries about a range of different history topics. In today's episode we're going back to the time of the Atlantic slave trade, and we're looking at how it was that so many Africans became slaves. Around 13 million Africans were captured and transported across the Atlantic during the time of the slave trade, and there was 4 key stages in this happening. The first and most obvious one was simply that they were captured. Initially, people from European countries would go into Africa and they would kidnap and capture as many Africans as they wanted. However, over time they began to realise that there was a quicker and for the Europeans safer option. This was that they would strike deals with African tribal leaders who would hand over Africans in exchange for things such as guns, pots and pans, cloth, alcohol and other goods as well. The Africans who were handing over other Africans would sometimes kidnap them, but other times these were people who had been captured during war, or they were even members of their own tribe who were perhaps guilty of breaking laws or owing a debt. Once they were captured, the next stage was to get them to the coast to prepare them for the journey. This would often involve a long march through very hot weather and very difficult conditions. Africans who tried to escape could be punished, they were often chained, and many would not last this journey and would die before they reached the coast. Once they reached the coast, they were held in slave forts, which were essentially prisons. In these prisons they would often be expected to work, and again conditions were very poor. Not only was there punishment, but often disease spread as well, and again large numbers of Africans would die before they would ever actually be put on a boat. If however they survived this far, the next stage was the boat, and what was known as the Middle Passage, which was the journey from Africa across the Atlantic to the Americas. Again conditions here were brutal. Slaves were pushed into overcrowded conditions, disease was common, and physical and sexual abuse took place as well. If they managed to make it across the Atlantic, and not all would survive this journey, the next and final stage to becoming a slave was the process of being sold. There was different ways that slaves were sold. They would sometimes be sold at a scramble, which involved people grabbing a large number for a fixed price, but more commonly they were sold at auction. Before slaves were auctioned off, they'd be prepared to present themselves in the best possible manner, such as cleaning them up or trying to hide signs of rebellion, such as covering up whiplashes. At this point, once Africans had been sold, they would then be taken to the plantations where they would work, and they would completely now lose their freedom, and they would now simply become to be treated as slaves.